The icy, rolling waves of the Atlantic splashed against the weathered wood, and the frosty winds filled the great canvas sails of the Lyon, another ship laden with colonists bound for Massachusetts. And this time, Roger Williams' name was on the roll of passengers aboard. In December of 1630, he had finally decided it was time to move. England was just too dangerous. Mary had walked faithfully by his side up the gangplank, and together they were braving the perils of the ocean. It was February now, 2 weary months later, and at last the long-sought shore had just come in sight. Okay, thank you. We can cut the dramatic music now. They soon stepped ashore on the shifting sands of Nantasket Beach. And just to give you an idea of where we're at, this is a map of the eventual 13 British colonies. This here is Massachusetts, and here within Massachusetts is Nantasket Beach. It was a bit of a strained welcome the young couple received from their countrymen here. The winter had been a harsh one for the colonists of Massachusetts Bay so far, and most of them were still living in makeshift shacks, not at all like the comfortable homes they were used to back in England. Food supplies were also a bit tight, but for all that, they were getting along well enough. Every man tried to cheer himself with thoughts of the coming spring. Thoughts of freshly plowed fields, little green blades of wheat pushing up through loamy soil, fresh snap peas and cabbages. Wait, peas and cabbage together? Hold on, let me see that. Okay, that is just gross. Maybe peas and cabbage separate, but not together. That's just wrong. I mean, seriously, if I was thinking of food to cheer me up, I'd think like pizza or something. Anyway, moving on. Roger and Mary settled down in the growing little town of Boston, the headquarters of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, quite near the spot where the Lyon had washed ashore. They had not been here very long before Boston's church lost her pastor. The Reverend's poor wife had been struck with such a terrible misery and homesickness that the man couldn't bear to see her suffer, and he had left to take her back home to England. The leaders of the colony asked Roger if he would like to take the Reverend's place. Here was his first chance to be a pastor of a church. But Roger shook his head. He told the men politely that he couldn't accept their offer. The Church of Boston has not truly separated from the Anglican Church, he explained. But this was not all. Roger was also troubled because they punish people for breaking the first table of the law, and they don't allow people to worship God how they believe is right. Now, in the case that you're wondering what Roger meant by this first table of the law, I'll explain it to you here. The first table of the law is a name often given to the first 4 of the 10 commandments in the book of Exodus. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. John Winthrop and the Puritan men in charge of the Massachusetts Bay Colony were punishing people that disobeyed, or at least that they thought were disobeying, these commandments. If a man said something about God or the Bible that they didn't agree with, they punished him. If he swore or used a foul oath, they punished him. If he didn't come to church, they punished him. If he did any work on Sundays, they punished him. Roger believed that this was wrong. He believed that men should be able to worship God how they believed was right, and that it wasn't man's job to punish other men for breaking these commandments in the first place. Already, Roger was very disappointed with what he was seeing of Winthrop's great city on a hill. The Puritans who had grown so long under the heavy hand of William Laud were now turning around and using the same harsh treatment against people who didn't agree with them. One must believe and act just as his church told him, or he would suffer reproach, fines, or worse. Roger decided to go to Salem, a town almost a day's ride to the north of Boston. Many other separatists like Roger had chosen to migrate here, and it was his hope that he would fit in a bit better. And at first, it seemed his hope would be realized. Almost right away, the Salemites asked him to become the pastor of their church. He gladly accepted, but the authorities back in Boston intervened. They were angry with Roger for speaking against them and for rejecting their offer to be pastor of the Boston church. They told the Salemites they were not allowed to choose Roger for their leader.